Magic 87.6, morning Andrew on the radio. Let's talk tech with Matthew Dickerson. Hello.
Yeah, good morning. Great to be chatting to you, Andrew.
Now, let's start off, mate. Kiki D, she sang the song, I've got the music in me, but now it's the idea is being taken a little bit too literally.
Yeah, I'm not sure what song this particular gentleman was listening to. Maybe it was Kiki D's song, but he had to undergo emergency surgery because he fell asleep with his wireless earbud in his ear. And at some stage during the night, he transferred it from his ear to his mouth and didn't actually notice it. He got up the next morning, couldn't find the earbud, no big deal. And I know when my kids do the same thing, sometimes it's caught up in the sheets or whatever. So he went outside, he shoveled a bit of snow, got a bit thirsty, came inside to have a drink and couldn't swallow, couldn't work out what was going on. And when he mentioned to his son that he couldn't find his earbud, his son said, "Maybe you swallowed it, Dad." And he said, "How silly is that? Don't be silly." And he kept going and he really had some trouble swallowing or eating anything, getting anything down. Next thing you know, in the hospital, quick x-ray, at the bottom of his esophagus, there was a little wireless earbud. So quick surgery, took it out. Don't know if it's still working, but his esophagus is still working now at least. And away he goes. So I've only got one of my kids left who still goes to bed with earbuds in, and I've been talking to him about that. And so this will be my next little bit to say, maybe you shouldn't be going to bed with the earbud in anymore, buddy.
Yeah, that's why, Matt, when my wife said, I want headphones, you're not getting earbud, and I bought her literally a pair of wireless headphones. So there is no way that she could actually do that.
They're a bit too
but it
big
gives
to
you
fit
meaning,
down.
doesn't it, too? Yeah, but it gives you meaning, doesn't it, Matt, to be able to taste the sound of what you're listening to,
It does, and I actually wonder whether, if he still played the music, whether it was still operational, so you could put your ear to his sort of chest area and just hear the music coming out of that little earbud. So they didn't. I think they should have followed a bit more in the story to find out whether it was still operational inside him and then when it was taken out.
Yeah. Immerse yourself in sound, literally.
That's right.
That's the way to do it. Now, the pandemic, teenagers, their use of their online experience, of course, you would expect it to have increased during this time, wouldn't you, Matt?
Logic says that that's right, but sometimes logic and the data don't match up. In this case, they do. There's been a surge in teenagers, 13 to 18-year-olds in particular were surveyed with this, seeking online help, specifically over sexting and cyberbullying. And when you think about it, they've been home more, they've been in front of the computer more, and they probably haven't been supervised as much because parents might have been at home as well, but they're in their office trying to work and continue on with their work and trying to keep the whole household running, but they're not in that group situation. They're sitting there by themselves. So when you look at the actual data, comparing year on year between last year and 2019, the instances of sexting has increased by 55% with teenagers and cyberbullying has increased by 39%. The other thing that's happened is that places like Kids Helpline have compared the number of searches for those topics and have found that dramatic increase. But they've also looked at, say, the 5 to 12 age bracket, so areas that you don't see on social media quite as much. But they're doing things like just searching for being safe on the internet, and that's increasing by 21%. So even at that young age, there's sort of that little hint of it starting to happen and kids being a little bit worried about it. When you start to get to the stuff that is even worse, illegal and harmful content, child sexual abuse material, for example, and this is across kids and adults now, you've seen that increase by 123%, and image-based abuse has leapt by 172%. So, look, social media's got a lot of good things going for it. Being able to be on your computer and in touch has got lots of positives, but obviously there's some negatives out there as well. And obviously it's I suppose, vigilance and keeping up to date with it from a parent's perspective, and really just making sure that you're in touch with what kids are doing. There is an Office of E-Safety, and they've got some good guidelines. I'd recommend parents have a read of those, esafety.gov.au. Maybe have a read of those with your kids even.
Yeah, and I was watching the ABC actually, Matt, and they were saying that most teenagers now can't differentiate their online world from their real world as well. And, apart from the stuff that they have to get on and do for learning, they're spending something like 14 hours a day in total on the internet. It's some crazy amount of times that they're spending on there.
And the interesting part about that is I haven't seen it with my kids where they'll say, I was talking to Billy Bloggs the other day, and when you keep going, the talking to was just a couple of messages back and forth, maybe via Snapchat, maybe via some social media. But if you and I said talking, I would think that we're actually having a verbal conversation. But now they feel like they know people, trust people, have conversations with people, even though all they've ever seen are some text characters on a screen. And that could be someone that is not being truthful about their age, their sex. It may be a bot for all they know. But they feel comfortable with that environment and feel like they're having conversations with real people that are their peers, even though they may not be.
I have a nephew he's 22, but he spent his life gaming online, and he plays Fortnite, and he plays with a guy in Canberra allegedly. And my wife turned around to him one day and said, "Oh, have you ever met this guy?" And he turns around and goes, "No. How long have you been playing with him?" "Oh, years."
Yeah. Yep.
And that is the reality of the world that we live in right now.
You've hit the nail on the head. That is the reality. And I don't see it changing in the near future. Obviously, the pandemic has kept us apart physically a lot more than ever before, and people are more and more comfortable with that virtual environment.
Absolutely. Apparently, Elon Musk has got $100 million and he wants to give us all a share.
Yeah, it's not much out of his whole net wealth, but it'd be enough to get a few people a bit excited about it. He's trying to give away $100 million, and he's also trying to save the planet at the same time, which is quite nice. And that's where Elon's, I suppose, focus is for some of his companies. He's trying to make a difference in the planet. But this is part of the X Prize Foundation. So the first step you've got to do, and we'll talk about it after we get off air, Andrew, and see what we can do to put something together here. 15 teams will be selected. The competition, the first part of it, runs for 18 months. And each of those 15 teams will get $1 million. And that's really just to say we've got a concept to take carbon dioxide out of the air. We might have to build a little working model, but we can probably knock up something there. And then if we're one of those 15 teams that's successful, we've then got another 2.5 years to develop that, using presumably that $1 million we've just been given, to develop that into the grand prize winner, which will be awarded $50 million. Second place, $20 million. Third place, $10 million. And what we've got to do, sounds pretty simple, we just need to demonstrate a solution that can pull carbon dioxide directly from the atmosphere and lock it away permanently in some sort of environmentally benign way. The target is 1 tonne of CO2 per day, but it needs to be able to scale up to gigatons per day. Because what Elon's trying to do is he's saying, we don't want to make ourselves carbon neutral, we want to make ourselves carbon negative because we've been carbon positive for so long. So sounds pretty good and might keep us busy for the next 4 years.
I wish I paid more attention in Year 9 science, man.
Yeah, that teacher did know what he was talking about. One day, he said to you, one day, Andrew, you might need this information.
Yeah, I know, right? If only I could remember it now, I'd be in such a better position.
That's right.
Now, the Australian government, we know, look, no panning on ScoMo here, but look, he's a little bit backward when it comes to electric cars, isn't he, Matt?
He is a little bit, and there's a new document that's just been released, and it's a draft document at this stage, talking about the future fuel strategy for the government. And I was hoping for a little bit more than we received, and certainly the electric vehicle industry in Australia was hoping there'd be some significant changes there. Joe Biden's come out. They're going to replace all the government vehicles, the electric vehicles. That sounds pretty good. But the future fuel strategy document at this stage has got, well, let's just talk about the couple of things it's got there. It's got a focus on co-investing with the private sector in charging infrastructure. Well, NRMA, ChargeFox, Tesla, they're all doing that already, so no big deal there. They're going to trial some Comcar vehicles. So they're the Commonwealth vehicles that are providing drivers for polys in Canberra. So it's a good step, but there's not many of those. Get ready for this one. This is probably the one that really gets me. They're going to, remember this is a document, Andrew, a policy document for a future fuel strategy. They're going to update the Green Vehicle Guide website. So this whole policy document they've been working on for 2 years, it's going to update a website. So that's pretty good. And they're going to ask...
That'll probably cost them a couple of $1 million to do that, Matt, knowing the way the bloody government works in their websites.
Probably will be, yeah. And they're going to ask energy agencies to consider options for managing potential congestion on the electricity grid. Well, there's only 0.6% of new car sales EVs at the moment, so I don't think there's much congestion on the electricity grid. things it's not considering, which we kind of did hope for in the EV industry in Australia, we hope for some direct financial help for motorists, like happens around the world, some targets for new EV sales, maybe minimum fuel emission standards. I think part of the problem is that they absolutely panned the Labor government during the 2019 election campaign, because the Labor government dared to say we should have 50% of new car sales EV by 2030, and the coalition had a war on the weekend from the Labor government and carried on. So it's a bit rich now if they turn around and change it too much. I suppose one of the things the EV industry in Australia is really hoping for was to get rid of the luxury car tax for EVs. And this is the one that really gets me to demonstrate how stupid it is. I can buy a $200,000 gas guzzler, a ute that might have a 6.2 litre engine and almost chews up petrol as quick as I can pour it in.
Yeah.
And I'm exempt of luxury car tax. But if I buy a
$70,000
EV, exactly right, I pay luxury car tax. So I think there's some things they could have done that would have been sensible around the world. Governments are doing a whole range of things. They're doing incentives or free registration or knocking out luxury car tax or letting you drive in bus lanes, a whole range of things. And in here, we're going to update a website. So we've got a long way to go.
It's ridiculous. Even in California, they've got EV targets. I think in other countries of the world, they've got EV targets. In Mudgee, for heaven's sakes, there's 3 charging points here.
Absolutely. And
Mudgee,
you've got some wineries around Mudgee that have actually put in their own charging infrastructure to encourage people to come and visit. And they're being used. I've talked to some of those wineries and I've plugged in at some of those chargers, and they say that people do visit those wineries. They drive up from Sydney, plug in, charge up, enjoy the winery, unplug, off they go. So private industry is doing it because government isn't doing it.
Oh, absolutely. And I've said this, Matt, publicly before. There is going to come a time in our lifetime, you already own one, where I'm going to end up owning an EV car.
Yeah,
it's inevitable.
Yep.
I really do feel it's inevitable. This is realistic. It's here. We have to change, and it's going to have to happen.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm up to 3 EVs now, Andrew. Our household has no petrol engines added whatsoever. Electric robotic lawnmower, electric vehicles, everything's electric in the whole place, and lots of solar panels to keep all that going. So the change is happening, and it's happening much quicker than people realise.
Yeah. Geez, I'm only up to my first diesel, man. I'm way behind where you are. All right. Talking about cars, apparently, when people start denying stuff, Matt, that's definitely happening, right?
That's right. The more you deny it, the more you know it's definitely happening. And so you're spot on. Hyundai, Kia are both strongly denying rumours that they will be building an Apple car. So they're trying to downplay these rumours. The companies say that they're no longer in talks. There's been a lot of speculation recently whether it might be either Hyundai or Kia or maybe some sort of joint program, because Apple doesn't want to go down the same path as Tesla. Apple saw that Tesla had a brilliant concept in what they designed, but the problem that Tesla hit was in the manufacturing, because they just weren't experts on the manufacturing. And it's taken Tesla a long time. They just missed out by not many cars on 500,000 cars last year. But companies like Hyundai and Kia, they know how to manufacture cars. So Apple wants to take their concept and give it to a manufacturer and say, this is what we want, in much the same way they do with their iPhones. They do the design work, they come up with the software, the whole concept, and then they outsource it to someone in China to go and manufacture that. But at the moment, it's being reported that Hyundai and Kia are both saying that talks are no longer going on, there's nothing to see here, look somewhere else, it's all business as usual, we're just going along. So I see that as an absolute sure sign that there's going to be some manufacturing by Hyundai and or Kia in the near future for an Apple car. And that'll be pretty exciting, because again, I think non-car manufacturers are approaching the whole EV car concept with a clean set of eyes without the blinkers that traditional car manufacturers have had on. And I think that's the biggest danger for the traditional car manufacturers, is that they keep doing things the same way they've always done it, because that's what they know. The Teslas of the world, the Apples of the world come along and do things completely differently.
What do you put in an Apple car, though?
Sorry?
Like what features do you put in an Apple car?
Yeah, I think it'll probably have Apple Play in it. That'd be one thing.
Yeah. Oh, there'd have to be 50,000 cameras in it so that the chicks driving it can take their selfies while they're driving. Look at me.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously, you wouldn't be able to get into it with a Android phone or an Android phone, you'd have to have an Apple phone to be able to even access the car.
Well,
I would
of course,
imagine.
that's a given. You know what else there'd be in it? There'd be a dodgy battery in it that you'd have to change after 12 months. That they'll just come out and go, yeah, we'll replace it for free. And then that one's dodgy as well. And then you have to go through that cycle again.
And then they start reducing the power of that to extend the battery life.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And then in 2 years it's obsolete because of the iOS update that just, it'll do a maximum of 60 k's an hour after it used to do 120.
Yeah, I think there's a good concept there. Maybe you should run a design competition. What would you have in an Apple car?
Yeah. I don't know, Matt. I'm an Android person, so